In this video, I'm going to explain why Airbnb feels so much harder than you expected, why the stress is built into the model, and why most people blame themselves when it's actually the type of guest that they're operating with. And by the end, you'll understand exactly what needs to change if you want a calmer, more predictable, more profitable all year round contractor B&B Airbnb business. Okay, so when you play the tourism game, you're dealing with Karens who basically want to pay peanuts, but they want Ritz service. Think about the logic of it. The majority of tourists that book Airbnbs either can't afford hotels or they want to try and benefit from economies of scale by getting more bodies into one property for a lesser nightly rate per head. And ultimately, what that does is it causes chaos because you end up with all of these needy guests who want this high-end service that as Airbnb hosts we cannot really deliver. I mean, we can deliver it, but we are limited by the systems we have, the people we have, the opening hours, and many other things that these high-end hotels can offer, which we just can't. And also, a lot of these guests are booking for pleasure rather than purpose, i.e., work, which I'm going to obviously come on to. Um, so, when they are booking, they obviously only book for like a short period of time as well. And that means that you're always going to have to be, turning your property over to make money. The average Airbnb host will do something like 8 to 12 turnovers per month just to make enough to make a tiny bit of profit. Now, for me, and I've been there, that is not a sustainable business. All right. You are going to end up burnt out. You're going to end up frustrated. And like most hosts, you're going to end up hating the business full stop. Because also with this type of guest, they typically don't come back either. It's all well and good saying, oh, well, maybe I'll try and book them in for next summer. Maybe they had a nice time. And don't get me wrong, there are certain Airbnbs in certain locations that are, say, holiday led, like, coastal cities, things like that. But the majority of profit in this game comes when you can make profit 11 months of the year. The majority of Airbnb hosts in the UK are making profit for 3 months in the year, and the rest of it, they are just clinging on to dear life. And that is not a sustainable business model. And even the ones that are busy in the summer at the holiday type destinations, they are going to, struggle through the winter. And it is just a case of if they have a bad summer, they're going to have a bad year. So I flipped this model. I used to run that model, and I flipped this model many years ago. And that's what I call the contractor B&B way, and obviously what I teach now. But the reason that it works is the fact that if we get a contractor stay, they want to book again because their project could be 4 months, 7 months, 12 months, 18 months. We've got some in stay at the minute, which is like 24, 25 months ongoing, and they're still renewing every single month because their projects continue to get delayed. You are not going to get a tourism guest book for 4 months, 7 months, 12 months. And therefore, you're constantly having to find new guests all the time to try and make profit. So you're constantly on the hustle. And that means eventually you're going to burn out. And that's exactly what happened to me in kind of 2021, 2022. I was operating like 450 units and had a team of like over 100 staff, and it was burnout. It was constant hassle, constant firefighting, constant problems, constant Karens complaining, constant threats about I'll leave you a bad review if you don't give me refunds, all that sort of stuff, which I'm sure if you're experienced in this game, you'll understand exactly where I'm coming from. So when you realize that they are not the right guest type, then you can start to do something about it. And that's exactly what I did. And I kind of figured out that there's a better guest type to go after. And when you then put all of the other pieces of the puzzle together, which I'm going to come on to, and, over the course of many videos to come, and obviously the ones already on my channel, it's kind of all leading towards this point of like stock type dictates the guest. Many people go, okay, I don't like tourists and I therefore want to operate with contractors. So I'm just going to turn my one bed apartment in the middle of London into a contractor Airbnb. That doesn't work. And what they end up doing is trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, and then they end up, blowing profit on both sides because they're no longer getting the tourist stays, and they're not going to attract contractors because they've simply just got the wrong type of stock. So for me, the larger houses work a hell of a lot better for the model. And that again comes down to economies of scale and budgets, which I will explain in further videos. But the stock type really does dictate the guest, and I would even say more so than the location. Like the majority of contractors, they basically have a 15-minute travel time. That's kind of their, whenever we speak to, these bigger companies and we're trying to do, long-term deals, they're like, right, your houses need to be within 15 minutes of this site. How many have you got? And then we'll, maybe say whatever, we've got, 5 or 6 in that area, and that, caters for 45 rooms. So therefore, it works for your project, and that's how we do deals. And that is ultimately what their criteria is. So you don't need flashy city center apartments to make this model work, which is, again, the kind of conception that most people have, is that you have to have these wonderful Instagrammable type of units to make money on Airbnb. I've gone a total full circle on that, and basically we just need units that are large enough and they're functional. And if you tick that box, you will earn a hell of a lot more profit. And then I think the next thing that I think dictates whether you get a contractor booking versus a tourist booking is how you price yourself online on Airbnb, booking.com, wherever you're putting yourself out there, and ultimately how you optimize your calendars. Too many people are, playing price wars. They are, increasing and decreasing on weekends. They are racing to the bottom in the kind of winter months. And for me, and also they're running like these 2-3 night stays, minimum stays. So that in itself leads to tourism. And you're always going to attract tourist guests if you price that way. Contractors are looking for longer stays. Now, they may only book Monday to Thursday to test the property out. However, I guarantee you they will have checked your calendar to see if it's open for longer, to say, okay, well, if this does work out, we are there for 7 months. Have they got availability over the next 7 months to potentially, do a deal? Because what they don't want to do is go to a different property each and every week. And this is how you go from taking a midweek booking from Airbnb and turn it into a 12-month direct booking, and obviously saving yourself a fortune in many ways, OTA fees, VAT, that sort of stuff. But, just to give you an example, like when you do get it right, you get bookings like this. Like these are from, my portfolio over the last few years, and like £105,000 booking. We've got £77,000 booking, we've got £66,000 booking. And I've got, so many more of these type of examples, because the model flipped, and we stopped hosting tourists and we started hosting contractors, and therefore the income changed. And when you do get it right, obviously, you imagine when you put someone in for 500 nights, 600 nights, after the first week of like, where's the Wi-Fi? How does the boiler work? The usual questions that you get from tourists, then they're just in there. And then the next, literally the only touch point thereafter is every now and then there might be a small maintenance issue, but the majority is, can we schedule the bi-weekly clean? And therefore, that is the only contact. So you're not needing to be, if you're running it yourself, you're not needing to be, on call all the time like you are with tourists. If you've got a team, you don't need as big a team because you're not getting as many queries, you're not getting as many problems to solve, so on and so forth. So, I guess the question is, why does Airbnb income feel so unpredictable month to month? And, that is 100% for me because you probably have the wrong stock. So in this next video, I'll show you exactly what stock you need to be buying or renting if you're doing rent to rent to attract long-term stable contractor demand.